Hi there, 8th graders. We're going to talk a little bit about health and digestion today. This is going to be on page 10 of your packet. Last year, you talked about the digestive system, so you have a little bit of background on this, and you've probably talked about it in health class as well. So this is not brand new information. It's just that sometimes the wording gets a little bit tricky, and sometimes it's hard to remember what comes from which food. So for instance, protein is in what types of foods, carbohydrates are in what types of foods, that kind of thing. So you're filling in the blanks there that are yellow. Nutrition is best defined by eating a proper amount of proteins, carbohydrates, and fats to help the body function properly. And this is going to tie right into your top-down web on page 12. So I'll hold that up for just a minute. So this top-down chart called organic compounds, you have seen these words already. These tie back to the MB1 notes. And so on this chart, you have already seen the words proteins, carbohydrates, and fats on this chart are going to be termed lipids. And we're going to talk a little bit more about those today. So we need to fuel our body, and food provides us with that fuel. And that comes into our body in the form of glucose, required for producing energy in our cells. And so that energy is going to come from the mitochondria at the cellular level. Proteins are needed for growth and repair of cells and tissues. And so we need to eat proteins. We also have other types of things that we need to eat to have a balanced diet. And so why is a healthy diet important? We need a healthy diet in order for our body to grow and for energy purposes. The smallest little bit that we do, stepping out of bed in the morning, takes a lot of energy. For our body to maintain the correct temperature, so you see heat here, right? Our body is doing a lot of work just to maintain our warmth and to keep our body at a regular temperature. And so all of these things are happening. And remember, we've already learned a little bit about this, right? Because we're fueling our bodies with food. And then we talked already about ATP when we talked about cellular respiration. And remember, our byproducts of cellular respiration we are breathing out carbon dioxide, and we're also getting rid of some water from our body as well. So first off, carbohydrates. Carbohydrates are sugars and starches mainly. So we've got a picture here for you. They provide really quick energy. So things like pasta, bread, potatoes, rice, cereals, that whole food group provide really quick energy. So if you were going to, for instance, like run a race, you need a lot of energy quickly for that. So you might take in a lot of carbs right before that race because you're going to burn them all off when you're running that marathon. Carbs can also be stored as fats in the body if they are not used. So if we take in a lot of carbs, that's our main diet, and we don't burn any of that off, that's going to cause weight gain. And this chart here shows, just good visual of some good carbs and bad carbs if you're making some choices, right? Whole grain bread's better than white bread. Oatmeal is going to be better than a sugary cereal. Green vegetables have carbs in them. You might not have thought about that, but that's going to be better than, soda and candy. Fruits are better than cookies. So just making some better choices for yourself. Lipids, and again, this is on that top-down chart. Lipids are fats, oils, and waxes. They provide energy, but they're a little bit harder to digest. Fats are recommended as part of a healthy diet because they provide the body and its organs with insulation and protection. So your body is going to use carbohydrates first, and then it's going to move on to the fat storage. So that's why fats and lipids are a little bit harder to digest. Carbohydrates are going to digest easily, and then you're going to use them really quickly. Lipids can cause problems with digestion and respiration when consumed in high amounts. So just like anything, and everything in moderation is good. So it should be a balanced diet. It should be some carbohydrates, some fats, and some proteins. We'll talk about that in just a little bit. But fats contribute most to obesity when consumed in excess or large amounts. So again, you know, if you're eating candy and chips and fast food, you know, for every meal, that's probably a little bit too much fats. Whereas, you know, there are some healthy fats, which are called unsaturated fats. So saturated fats are going to be less healthy for you. So think, you know, potato chips for that. The intake of too many fats in the diet can negatively affect human health by clogging arteries and blood vessels, reducing the flow of oxygen and raising blood pressure. So again, this is over time, you know, over and over again, eating too many fats, not a balanced diet. This will cause that. All right, saturated fats are most harmful fat to the body. So again, the saturated fats are going to, over time, this is showing an artery that ends up being blocked. And so arteries, we're talking about the heart, right? And so eating unsaturated fats is a little bit more healthy. You've probably heard of diabetes. Maybe somebody that you know is affected by diabetes. There are two types of diabetes. We're going to talk probably a little bit more about diabetes when we talk about diseases in the next unit. And it is a non-infectious disease, meaning that, you know, if I have diabetes, I cannot give you diabetes. It is most likely the result of a diet high in sugars and fats. It has also been linked to cardiovascular disease and obesity. So cardiovascular disease meaning heart disease. A symptom of diabetes is high levels of glucose in the blood. So like I said, there are two types of diabetes, and those are outlined right here. The one that we're going to talk about in this notes page is called type 2 diabetes. It is the one that's linked to obesity and lack of exercise in adults over 40 years of age. So again, this is a buildup of, you know, maybe not eating correctly, not exercising for a very long time, right? 40 years old. So this wouldn't directly impact you right now if you're making poor health choices. A well-balanced diet results in the regulation of blood sugar levels. So somebody with type 2 diabetes can level out their blood sugar by turning to a well-balanced diet. The last kind of food group we're going to talk about is proteins. And proteins are needed for cell growth and tissue repair, and they help build muscle. Proteins include meats, beans, eggs, nuts, and fish. So if you were playing a sport where the coach said, you know, you need to build some muscle, proteins is going to be the diet that is going to help you build that muscle. So meats, beans, eggs, so high protein, low carb diet. Proteins are made of amino acids. They include meats, for instance, red meats. Red meats are harder to digest. Red meats would include hamburger and steak meat. Poultry, which is chicken and turkey and fish, are a little bit healthier protein choices. If you're a vegetarian, you only eat vegetables. And so they need to eat a varied diet because vegetables are incomplete proteins for a balanced diet. So vegetarians must eat a varied diet, including proteins in beans, nuts, and eggs, because they're just not getting those proteins from meats because they're not eating meats. So, things like salmon and chicken, they're a little bit easier to digest than red meat, and so they're a little bit healthier protein choices. In the next video, we're going to start with the next notes, which will start us with fiber. All right, we'll see you back in part 2 of health and digestion notes.